Hi, I'm Adam. I'm around 40 years old. I know, super old, right? I work at CGI, and I have some questions here from students that I think I can answer. Here's one from Aliyah Bircher from the Dean Academy. How did people come up with coding? There were two very remarkable people who lived in the early 1800s, Charles Babbage and Ada Lovelace. Charles Babbage had this amazing idea for a steampunk computer. He called it his difference engine. It was the size of a house and less smart than your average Fitbit, but it was a start. Then he had an idea for an even better computer, the analytical engine. Now, that was never built, but despite that, his friend Ada Lovelace was smart enough to work out how to make it do things besides pure maths. Ada Lovelace was the first programmer, and that was the beginning of coding. I hope that answers your question, Aliyah. Next question is from Jacek of All Saints Academy. Are we ever going to reach a point where passwords are simply too insecure and must be replaced, and if so, what could they be replaced with? Well, Jacek, in my opinion, that point has already arrived. A password that is easy, or even possible, to remember is just too simple. You need a 64-character string that's complete gibberish with no patterns and all 4 character classes, and you can't remember that. Even using a password manager isn't a great solution because you can only really use it in one place, unless you move it around, and then that causes all sorts of other security issues. But there are a number of solutions we can use. Security is layered. You don't use one solution, you mix them up. Like arranging slices of Swiss cheese on a sandwich, just one layer has holes, but several layers block each other's holes. So maybe you use a kinda okayish password with a 2FA app, a FIDO token, and a fingerprint scan. There are lots of really smart people working on this problem. There's even a neat app called SQRL which uses QR codes for authentication. So the next question is from Marley of All Saints Academy. Will quantum computers ever be feasible and readily available to the masses for the same or similar price to current computers, and if so, how many years or decades will that take? IBM, among other companies, is working on quantum computing. They do have a working prototype in a lab, but it can only handle a few qubits, and it's very hard to reset. So there's a lot of technological leaps that need to happen to make a viable QC. I'm not really sure anyone really knows what they'd do with one if they had one, but it's a really cool concept anyway. So at the moment they're not really feasible. I guess it's several decades or even a century until anything like your gaming laptop is available. So my advice to you, Marley, would be don't hold your breath for a QC, upgrade the laptop now. Next question is from Evie of Holy Trinity C of E Primary. What type of things do you do? How hard do you have to work? Thanks for asking, Evie. I have to work so hard, but the smile on my manager's face at the end of the week is worth it. The money's nice too. I'm a DevOps engineer, which means sometimes I write programs and sometimes I fix things that are broken in servers. I deal mainly with Python and Ansible, and also some less well-known programs like Phantom and Cloudera Hive. Here's a question from Cheryl of Stroud High School for Girls. What are the possibilities of AI being used in a large scale in the future, e.g. robots and self-driving cars? Well, Cheryl, currently our best AIs are about as smart as a worm. They're good at solving very simple repetitive problems, like working out what makes a good sandwich. They're not so good at complex problems like how to drive a car. Have you ever seen a Roomba trying to get through a doorway? They're not very good at it, are they? And that's a simple problem to us. There needs to be a technological leap to a new kind of AI which can solve general problems. Then we'll get our self-driving cars and robot assistants. The next question is from Meredith of Stroud High School for Girls. What science fiction movie from the past do you think is most similar to current technology? And what do you think will be the most interesting technological advancement that will happen over the next 10 years? I think any of the Star Trek movies. A lot of our gadgets are inspired by Star Trek. We have our communicators. I'm recording this video on a data pad. We have our replicators, or 3D printers as we call them. I think 3D printers will start working at the molecular scale, and then we'll have true replicators. Here's a question from Ella of Stroud High School for Girls. What are the chances of warp drive from Star Trek happening? Well, Ella, I have some good news. There is a hypothetical design for a warp engine called the Alcubierre drive. We don't know how to build one yet, but recent research has upgraded it from completely impossible to very hard. So who knows, we might see a working warp drive by the 23rd century. And that's all we've got time for, and I'm sorry if I mispronounced anyone's name. See ya.
Hey, I'm Abdi from Gemba Advantage, and I'm answering what is one thing you wish you knew before starting your career. So before I started my career, I wish I fully understood the importance of continued learning and self-development. After finishing my computer science degree at King's, I was honestly glad to have finished my studies. I just wanted to go to a beach in Dubai, relax, and drink some mocktails, chill out with my friends, and I'm sure that's what a lot of students look forward to doing after finishing their studies. However, one of the best things I've learned about life since starting my career is that we never stop learning. There are always new skills for us to learn and techniques for us to adopt. Now, if we take a look at some of the most successful people in the world right now, they understand this, right? Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon, spends most of his time reading. The best entrepreneurs in this world don't act like they know everything. They all understand the fact that in order to be successful, they need to continuously learn. Let's take a look at the concept behind continuous learning and how it has helped advance technology over the past 20 years or so. Now, many years ago, probably before you guys were born, people were storing all their computers, databases, networks, and storage platforms on premises. So this means within a building they worked in. So this meant they had to pay a lot of money just to run their applications due to all these hefty bills. Now, at the time, this seemed great. Nobody really batted an eye about issues related to costs. However, a gentleman called Joseph Carl Robnet decided that this approach was not the way forward. So Joseph Carl Robnet spent most of his time educating himself so he can come up with a concept behind cloud computing. Now, why am I telling you this? Why is this important? This shows that even though everything was perceived to be fine at the time, due to his self-development, continued learning, and self-improvement, he was able to come up with a solution that has modernized the world. Now, this is something we should all strive to do, right? 20 years ago, nobody would have thought that we could be doing presentations like this right now. Likewise, 20 years from now, so 20 years in the future, the world will be a completely different place. And everyone listening to this video right now has the opportunity to make a difference in the world. You can innovate, create new ideas, and ultimately make the world a better place for us to all live in. Now, if there's one thing I want you to take away from this answer, it's the importance of learning and self-development. For us to live life to the fullest, we must continuously look for ways to improve, right? And I was in school once, right? I know learning can be tough and it can be frustrating. This is especially true when we talk about, taking on new sports like rugby or pushing our brains to the limit by trying to understand some piece of code. But although the task is hard, right, nothing is greater than, you achieving your accomplishment. For highly challenging goals like learning how to write software, right, it's such an amazing feeling when your code works bug-free. When we play sports, beating our personal records gives us a great feeling. So to wrap up, never stop learning and keep pushing yourself to the limit.
Hi, I'm James. I'm a developer in the space sector at CJ UK. We've had a question about website cookies. So Evie asks us, why when you go on a website does it say accept cookies? What are cookies and how are they used? Well, when you visit a website and it asks you to accept cookies, it's either they're not asking if they can post you a batch of biscuits, that'd be very nice, but in reality they're asking so that they can track how you use the website. So this may sound quite scary, but actually a lot of things we take for granted on the internet wouldn't actually work without cookies. So things like when you visit your favourite social media website and it remembers your username and password, that's done through cookies. Or if you do online shopping and you add stuff to your basket, that's also done through cookies. And from a website's point of view, they use cookies to track things like unique website visitors and also how people navigate through the site in general. And cookies are also quite important for advertising as well. So you probably noticed quite a few times if you've searched something on Google, say a new pair of trainers, you'll then see advertisements for those same pair of trainers everywhere else you go. Sometimes this is useful if you want those trainers, but a lot of the times it's just plain annoying. But cookies in practice, how do they work? Well, essentially they're just a small piece of data, and these get saved to your computer's web browser. So things like Google Chrome, Firefox, Safari, other web browsers exist. But importantly, every time you make an action on the website, that cookie is then sent between your computer and the website, and that's how they're able to determine what you specifically are doing on the site. So you might be at this point wondering, if they're so important to how things work on the internet, why does every website ask us to accept? And this is largely due to a law that was passed in the last few years from the European Union, so GDPR. And this is intended to give us greater control of our privacy, especially online. And because cookies can track and identify us, it now means that websites have to ask us to at least view their cookie policy. And this is just their promise for what they say they'll use the information they gain from tracking us for. But importantly, you can accept or reject this. And if you reject, then it'll disable those tracking cookies. So yes, that's why we see it everywhere you go now. And hope that answers your question, and keep asking and being curious, and best wishes for the future.
Question: what is the one thing you wish you knew before starting your career? It's not really a thing I wish I knew, but instead one thing I wish I did. I wish I'd spent more time learning during my first degree and less time in the pub. I just feel like I've missed too many opportunities to actually learn some really cool engineering concepts.
So in my opinion, technology doesn't have to advance to accommodate the idea of diagnostic tools. For instance, a computer system that could tell you that your leg is broken, because we already have the imaging technology, we have x-rays and ultrasounds, etc. And we already have the decision-making technologies. We have something called expert systems, where it is provided a whole bunch of predefined use cases and scenarios. For example, a fever is related to a cold, a flu, or a virus type thing. And so if a user says, I have a fever, then tell it that it might be one of these things. We have that already. There's lots of online versions of that. We also have artificial intelligence, which is used to model data and patterns and find lots of different potential outcomes based on things that have happened before. The issue is we don't have the data. So for a doctor or medical staff to make a decision, there's so many different variables that they rely on, sometimes even just gut instinct or different senses that we can't really quantify in data yet. So they don't just go, oh, you've got a temperature, then it's probably one of these things. They ask you things like, what's your life like at home? What's your pain tolerance? Have you been on holiday recently? Have you been to any certain countries and things like that? And I mean, pain tolerance is a great example of this, where one person can say out of 10, I feel like the pain is 6, and another person can say out of 10, I feel like the pain is 9, and those two people can suffer from the same thing. So there's all of this data and information that's not yet in a system somewhere that we can build patterns and models from. So until we figure out how to quantify that data and store that data and gather it, then we can't have these diagnostic tools. There's also another question about privacy and ethical laws, and who would actually have this system? Would it be a government system? Would it be a private system? Would people even want this type of system? So in terms of this question, it's not a question about technology, we've got it, but it's a question about data. And so the technology is there to do it if we can figure out how to gather the data in an ethical and quantifiable manner, if we can get it all so that we know the decision being made is an accurate decision because people's lives are at stake.
Hello, I'm here with Anya from the CGI penetration testing team. A penetration tester checks the security of systems using similar tools and techniques as hackers. And Anya has kindly offered to answer some questions on hacking and hackers. Hi Anya. The first question I have is from the Dean Academy. Could you tell me, how do police hack hackers?
Okay, good question, first of all. The police do not necessarily hack hackers. Typically, hacking groups will be infiltrated by an undercover officer or an informant. Information about the group may be leaked between members of the group, potentially disclosing their identity. Hackers may also be tracked down due to them failing to cover their tracks properly. It's often dramatized within movies or TV shows, where criminals are traced through their IP addresses. An IP address is a unique number that is linked to an internet connection, such as your home address. For example, when you go onto Facebook, they store which IP address logged into your account. If someone has gained access to something they shouldn't, the data is typically stored somewhere and can be accessed by police. If they have left any clues about who they are, such as their IP address, the police can go to the associated internet provider, such as Virgin Media, and find out the home address that is associated with that IP address.
Thanks, Anya. That's really helpful. The next question is very similar, but it's almost the reverse. How do hackers hack people?
Again, we're using the word hack a lot, aren't we? So individuals are not commonly targeted by hacking groups, as it's not very profitable. But there are 3 common techniques used to attack wide ranges of people. So one that you might have been a victim of is a brute force attack through password reuse. A brute force attack is where lots of attempts are made to guess your password over a period of time, or to try and find a valid account that you have created using a password that has been compromised from a previous data breach. An example of this may be that you've used the same password for Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. If YouTube was hacked, the people that hacked it would have your username and password for Twitter and Facebook too. Therefore, your account could be easily accessed. Another common technique is phishing. Phishing is when a malicious person will send emails or text messages that redirect you to fake websites that look legitimate in an attempt to trick you into inputting sensitive data, such as usernames, passwords, or payment details. So the third well-known technique is through malware. Malware will typically be deployed through infected software via email or through a malicious download. For example, adverts that ask you to download and install this software for a chance to win money.
Great, thank you, Anya. We're still on the hacking theme, but I have a question from you at community school now, but I think it leads on nicely from your previous answers regarding how you can protect yourself from things. So, how do you stop someone hacking into your computer and stealing your data?
There you go, $1 million question. This is what everybody should be asking. So the best way to keep your computer secure is to always apply operating system and software updates as soon as they are available. When new updates are released by companies, they do not always include new features, they provide security fixes too. And this is the best way to secure your computer from malware or hackers who don't require human interaction to gain access. With the advancements of cloud computing, data is not always stored locally on your computer. Software solutions such as iCloud, Microsoft OneDrive, Dropbox, and Google Drive all store your data and files in the cloud. Your data is then only protected by your cloud username and password. So it is vital that you don't reuse passwords and enable multi-factor authentication whenever you can.
Thank you very much, Anya. That's great. I think that's some great information there about hackers and how to protect yourself from them.
No worries.
Hello, my name's Andy Davis. I'm Global Transport Practice Director at NCC Group. I've been asked about how easy it would be to hack a self-driving car and about how software updates are sent to connected cars. These are great questions as a lot of work is currently being done by the car industry to address them. So, first I'll put my attacker's hat on. If I wanted to hack a self-driving car, it all depends on what my motivations are. Do I want to hack one specific car, maybe because I want to steal some data from the car, like a phone book that's been shared with the car from the driver's smartphone? Or do I just want to remotely control the car and take the occupants on a roller coaster ride? Alternatively, do I want to hack all of the cars? Maybe to launch a ransomware attack where I stop all the cars from driving and demand money from the drivers to re-enable them. If I just wanted to attack one specific car, I'd probably need to get quite close to try and attack some of the radio technologies it uses, like Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, or the DAB radio. But if my target was all of the cars, then instead I'd probably try and hack into the service provider that all the cars are wirelessly connected to via the mobile phone network. So now, changing my hat from attacker to defender, the car industry has to comply with a whole bunch of regulations for things like exhaust emissions and safety, making sure, for example, that airbags work correctly. As there's now a lot more computer technology and communications happening on connected and self-driving cars, new regulations have been developed to make sure that the cars are not only safe, but also resilient against cyber attacks. The regulations make sure that the car companies think about cybersecurity threats when they're designing and manufacturing the cars, and also make sure they're rigorously tested by people like us to ensure that hackers cannot get into the computer systems, access our personal data, or tamper with any of the car's communications. Another new regulation makes sure that when software updates need to be sent to the car, it happens automatically and no one's able to prevent or tamper with the update process. Hopefully that's answered your questions. Thank you.
Hello, I've got a question from Joshua, Year 8 from the Dean Academy, and he asks, how many people use Google per year? Okay, there's two answers to this. First one, an awful lot. Second answer would be a bit more helpful and a bit more specific. So we're told that Google receives roughly 65,000 searches every second on any given day. So we can extrapolate that. 39.9 million searches every minute, or 230 million searches per hour, or 5.6 billion searches every day. We're also told an average person conducts 3 to 4 searches every single day, and so that means there's 1.6 billion people per day using Google to search on the internet. There are 7.5 billion people in the world's population, so that's a fifth of the world are using Google to search every day. So your question was how many people use it every year? Well, I'd expect the people that are using it every day will be roughly the same set of people using it throughout the year. So say people are using it maybe every second day, that means anywhere between 1.5 billion and 3 billion people will be using Google throughout the year, which is anywhere between a fifth and 2/5 of the world's population, which is an awful lot. Okay, I hope that helped answer your question. Okay, bye-bye.
Hi, it's Colin Topping, and in fact, a similar question, so I'm going to answer both at the same time. One is from Aaliyah in the Dean Academy. How do hackers hack people? And similarly from Melody in Newent Community School, how do you stop someone hacking into a computer and stealing your data? So I'll try and answer them both at the same time. And so the best way is to become security aware, to have an understanding, a basic concept of how to protect yourself and your computer. So that's yourself from social engineering and your computer. Make sure it's as hardened as possible to make it too difficult for a hacker to target you and go and target someone else, really. So there's plenty of sites available. The National Cybersecurity Centre has lots of really good information for all levels, and very basic stuff as well to get just basic understanding of cyber and how to protect yourself. And there'll be local groups as well that can look to help you. So what do I mean by that? So with regard to securing your data, so backup of your data is really important, and backing up to a cloud account that you have a secure password and then you have it, or possibly you can back up that data, and that's files and your photos and your videos, and you could back that offline as well onto a hard drive that you keep in your house, and just transfer stuff over, and then just connect occasionally to do those updates. So you can, but make sure you have that backup, and make sure it's not connected to your local network as well, to your computer network. So if you are storing stuff in the cloud, good, but make sure, because they will back it up, your cloud provider will have backups as well. But then make sure that the access to that data in the cloud is secure. So you have quite a secure password that you don't reuse for anything else. That's just for your data, for your access to that cloud. With regard to passwords as well, so it's difficult because they say use unique passwords at every time on every account, and it's really difficult to remember. Everyone's got 100 plus different accounts that all require passwords now. So if you can and you feel comfortable, use a password manager, which is a piece of software that it will create your own passwords, and it will allow you to collect and to keep those in a central area. Now, goodness sake, if you have one of them, you need to make sure that has a really good password, that is unique and only you know it, or one other person that you trust. Keep them all in one place with a password manager. You definitely need to have unique passwords for your really sensitive accounts. So for your emails, your cloud account, make sure they're unique, because if you get compromised, and it won't be because something you've done, it'll be because a third-party site has been compromised and they've taken everyone's username and password. So if that username and password you use it for everything, then whoops, that's not going to be good. So definitely for your sensitive stuff, unique passwords. Ideally as well, you back that up with a two-factor authentication. So whether that's a message to your an SMS message to your phone, or you can have these Chrome Google tokens as well. So anything like that is really good to have, because someone does compromise your username and password, they haven't got that second factor to access. For the device itself, so protect your device and the apps, make sure they've got their current version, turn on automated patching and updates with your provider so that you don't have to think about it, it just happens in the background. If you walk away from your phone, your laptop or your tablet, lock it down. Your phone, have it so that it just locks itself after 30 seconds. You might think it's a bit of a pain that you keep picking up and you have to open it up again, but usually that's a pin or it's a squiggle or it's facial recognition, so it shouldn't be too difficult these days. Be aware of social engineering. So we've probably heard of phishing emails where people try to encourage you to click on links and put your details in. There's now phishing, which is the same thing but through the phone, where people phone you up and ask for stuff, and smishing, which is they do it through text, through SMS. So there's different flavors now of people trying to fool you. And also be a little bit aware of the websites you go to, and when they ask for your details to register, just think why they need that detail. Only give the detail that they need to have. And if they ask for your date of birth, so quite often like pizza companies, they ask for your date of birth and you think, well, you don't need my date of birth. And the reason they want it is because they want to give you, a discount on your birthday or invite friends. But there's no need to have your full date of birth, so just be careful with that. So if they insist on a date of birth and I don't think they need it, then I'll give them a fake date of birth. I have one fake date of birth. I don't keep making up different fake dates of birth. I have a date of birth that's similar but not the same of my real date of birth, because I don't want them to have that if they don't need it. So they don't have it if they don't need it. I still get the discount because it's still the month of my birthday and it's still roughly the same time, but it's not my date of birth. Okay, just a few things to think about.